What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 312 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, November 20th, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. As always, if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So I'm not going to start off this video by saying, oh, I hope to be done within an hour today, because the last two times I did that, we went well over an hour. I think it was 2 weeks ago, we went about an hour 45. One of the longer episodes, not counting the big 300th episode, over the summer. So that was an hour 45. And I think last week, we went like an hour 15. So again, I'm not going to sit here. I mean, you guys already know, obviously, looking at the timestamp for this video. But I don't want to sit here not knowing myself and say, hey, I hope to be done within 45 minutes today. I hope to be done within 45 minutes today. Because even though we didn't get as many questions for today's video, sometimes I just see it fit to go off on a certain topic and I rant and ramble for over 5 to 10 minutes on a certain question. And then we're, by that point, already over the hour mark. Blink and you miss it. We're already past the hour mark. So I won't make that mistake again here for today's show. But nonetheless, we'll get started here first with the JJF Rants experience from YouTube. Jared's question was, based on what you've seen so far from AEW, who is a talent that you weren't previously familiar with that have impressed you, one that you haven't been impressed by, and one that you're still undecided on? That's a very good question. One talent that I've seen from AEW that I was not previously familiar with that has impressed me. I mentioned him, I think, last week while answering your question, Jared, about what homegrown talent I could see becoming the first world champion that's not an elite guy or a former WWE guy. Darby Allin, I think would be one. I was completely unfamiliar with him prior to AEW. So he made his debut in he might have been in that Casino Battle Royal at Double or Nothing. His first real breakout match in AEW was the match with Cody at Fyter Fest in June. However, I had seen him in action 2 weeks before that against Jon Moxley, who was actually facing tonight on Dynamite. They had like some sort of street fight, no-holds-barred match, non-sanctioned, whatever. Non-sanctioned is really AEW. It was more like a no-disqualification match at a Northeast Wrestling show back in June, 2 weeks before Fyter Fest, and I was blown away by what this guy could do. He's really, really good. So Darby Allin is one. Private Party, I was somewhat familiar with from, again, Northeast Wrestling. They've had a lot of matches there in the last couple of years. They're more of a Northeast tag team. But I was kind of familiar with them, not really until AEW. They've really impressed me. They've won me over. Best Friends I was already aware of. Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy will not be a popular answer, and I talked about him a few weeks ago here in the show when John Ritlin asked me about him. He's a guilty pleasure of mine. I like the gimmick, whatever the fuck that gimmick is. Is it stupid? Yeah, but it's so dumb that I think it works. And there's no denying that he's a fan favorite. Listening to those reactions that this guy receives, he's a fucking star. For whatever reason, he's a star. And I just love the whole hands in the pockets thing. More so than just Orange Cassidy, though. I love the whole pairing with Best Friends. I love that trio. And I've said that here on the show before. I've said it on WrestleRant Radio before. I will sing their praises till the cows come home. I think they're an amazing trio, incredibly entertaining. For whatever reason, they just are. So Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, Private Party, Britt Baker, I was kind of already aware with from the few appearances that she's made on the indie scene and in NXT and other places. Trying to think, like Rio's really good. She hasn't exactly won me over in terms of, I'm her biggest supporter, but I think she's great. Their women's division needs work. But I think overall they've had a lot of homegrown talent that's not from WWE and other promotions that I haven't seen before that have really, really impressed me since the start of AEW. So that's that category of your question. The other part of your question was one that I haven't been impressed by. Nyla Rose, I had no idea who she was prior to AEW's launch. Is she terrible? No, I just don't think she's that good. I really don't think she's as good as some people make her out to be. The Rio match was way overblown. It was not nearly as good as people were making it out to be. The final few minutes, maybe, yeah, I could see those being exciting. The crowd was into it by the closing stretch. At least I would hope they would be. But other than that, though, I have not been overly impressed by Nyla Rose. She just does nothing for me personally. Nyla Rose has not impressed me. Joey Janela, I was already familiar with. I don't know if I've ever seen one Joey Janela match, aside from that one NEW show that Darby Allin was on back in June that I was at. He faced Brad Hollister, and they had a really good match. Joey Janela, for me, just doesn't do a lot, to be honest with you. Jimmy Havoc is starting to grow on me. He hasn't really impressed me all that much either. I've seen him before in Progress and other promotions. But other than that, he hasn't really blown me away. Joey Janela, I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a big fan of the whole hardcore style shit. In the ring, putting that shit aside, he's not really that great. It's not one of those, he's a danger in the ring like other people were. Jim Cornette, I think, was making that case last week. He was making that argument that Joey Janela was a danger to have in the ring. I'm not exactly saying that. And just in terms of being as far as in-ring abilities go, putting aside the hardcore shit, I just don't think he's really anything special, in my opinion. So those are those people. And then you said one that you're still undecided on. I mean, by this point, we've really gotten a good grasp of how good most of these people are. Let's look at the AEW roster real quick. We'll go to Wikipedia, trust the old Wikipedia, because I forgot this part of your question, so I couldn't really prepare for it. And you also sent it in last week, which I encourage, by the way. I love that Jarrett did that, just because it kind of gives me more time to prepare. In the case that I do prepare, I mean, obviously in this case I didn't for this part of his question. Looking at the roster here, Kip Sabian I think is great. We haven't really seen a whole lot of him. Not Angel Garza, Sammy Guevara. I get not that I get them mixed up. I just kind of think of Angel Garza whenever I see Sammy Guevara because they're so similar and they're both so great. Sammy Guevara was one, not that I'm undecided on, but he was one that I wasn't familiar with prior to AEW that has really impressed me in AEW. Sonny Kiss I'm undecided on. Just in the ring, we haven't seen a whole ton of him, and he's good. I mean, I've seen him before in Lucha, but the whole ass in the face thing, that's not really, that doesn't really do much for me. Brandon Cutler, I'm undecided on. I mean, his matches are whatever. I mean, the guy's, I don't really give a shit about the guy. Marco Stunt, not my cup of tea personally. I like the Orange Cassidy stuff. I could deal with that. Marco Stunt, when with Jungle Boy and the Jurassic Express, it kind of sort of works. On his own, I do not take the guy as a threat at all. I do not view him as a threat in the slightest. So he's one I'm maybe not undecided on as much as I am just not sold on at all. But yeah, overall, I think they have a strong roster. And I think the good definitely outweighs the bad in terms of people that have impressed me so far in AEW. And I think that's one of the cooler parts of the promotion is that it's really broadened our horizons to a lot of people that we didn't even know existed until AEW became a thing because of their exposure and their TV deal and stuff like that. Like MLW, I heard is a great product. And I know they're on YouTube and shit like that, but I already watch so much wrestling as it is, I just don't have time for it. And also because they're not on TV, there's not a lot of buzz there, I just don't watch the show. So again, they might have great wrestlers there that I'm not really all that familiar with. AEW, though, has the exposure. They have the platform, so I am able to check these people out. And so far, they have blown me away more often than not. So hopefully they can continue to build upon who they already have and continue to bolster that really strong roster that they have at the moment. The Average Grunt from YouTube, his question was, I challenge you to a Survivor Series match consisting of our favorite underappreciated WWE superstars, Team GSM versus Team Grunt. You'll need to pick 5 men to go against my team of D'Lo Brown, Umaga, Test, Rhino, and Mike Knox, a.k.a. Dem Big Boys. A bonus if you can come up with a team name. Some ground rules. You can pick superstars that are dead or alive, obviously. You can't pick anyone on my team, obviously. They have to be former or current WWE superstars that debuted before 2010. So no NXT guys, no former world champions or Hall of Famers of any kind, WWE or otherwise. Thought that I had more time to ask you this, but apparently Survivor Series is this Sunday, and since I wanted to pose this to you before the show, I have to do it now, so apologies if I'm putting you on the spot here. All right, so this is going to come across as a major makeshift tag team, and rightfully so, because I put this together 5 minutes ago. But, when I read your question, you really put me on the spot. You did, and not in a bad way, when you said, no former world champions and only underappreciated guys, people that debuted before 2010, because probably all of my team would have been from, 2010 onward. I would have said a team like Randy Orton, The Revival, Bobby Roode, Robert Roode, whatever, and Austin Aries or something, because I always thought they would be a great stable. So obviously that won't be the case, because they all debuted after 2010, except for Randy Orton, of course. So pre-2010, guys that have never been world champions. I was looking at your team, and for some of those guys, at least when it comes to, Umaga, you had Mike Knox on there. I'm thinking, holy shit, I'm thinking guys that never really reached their full potential in WWE in the mid-2000s, because that was kind of my era. I started watching, of course, in 2008, so I was, I kind of grew up as a wrestling fan on Raw that year, on SmackDown that year. So I put together a team of guys from that time period that never really reached that next level that could have been world champion. So my team is the following. Your team would win in a heartbeat just because they're all fucking monsters. But my team would consist of the following. Obviously, William Regal. How could it not? You can't put the word underappreciated in a question to me on my show and not expect me to respond with William Regal. So William Regal would be the captain. Then it would also have on there Matt Hardy, who was, a mainstay on SmackDown back in 2008. Never a world champion. I mean, if we're including only WWE and not other promotions, then Matt Hardy, I don't count the ECW title. I know they called it the ECW World Championship at one point. When you say world title, I think Universal Championship, WWE title, World Heavyweight title, or WCW, whatever. None of this ECW bullshit, or even TNA. I know he was a TNA World Champion too, but if we're only counting WWE, then, WWE or World Heavyweight, whatever, then Matt Hardy should be eligible because he never held either of those championships. So William Regal, Matt Hardy, and then the prime three guys from '06 through 2008 on SmackDown that were always on the cusp of superstardom and never quite got there. Shelton Benjamin, MVP, and Mr. Kennedy. So you can call them the Forgotten Five, I guess, of guys that never became the world champion. MVP never really got that close in WWE. I can't even count the amount of times he went for a world championship in the company. He was upper mid-card at best, but it kind of seemed like he could have broken through in 2007, maybe even or mid-08, when he got hot as a babyface in 09. It never quite happened. William Regal, you guys know the story there, came close to becoming world champion reportedly in 2008 before he got himself suspended. Shelton Benjamin was never really in line for a world championship push, maybe early on in his career in 04, when he came to Raw and beat Triple H 3 weeks in a row. Other than that, I can't remember a time that he was ever in the main event, but he could have been there because he was that good. Mr. Kennedy probably came closer than anyone. Matt Hardy had a few different opportunities. He was hot at various points. Again, he got that opportunity in ECW and TNA. Never in the main event scene on Raw or SmackDown, but he came close. Mr. Kennedy probably came closer than anyone else. Obviously because he won the Money in the Bank contract in 2007 and then lost it a month later due to injury. What they thought was an injury, which ended up not being an injury, so that sucks. And he never held a world championship after that. He did in TNA. He was a former one or two time, I think he was a two-time TNA world champion over there, but never in WWE. So that would be my team. Your team would obviously win, but yeah, the Forgotten Five consisting of William Regal, Matt Hardy, MVP, Shelton Benjamin, and who was the other member? Mr. Kennedy. And John Morrison as an alternate in case someone couldn't compete. FD's first question here from Facebook. His first question was, do you feel like AEW is getting a bit closer to become WCW 2.0 with their latest trademarks for the next events that they will hold, like Bash at the Beach for their edition of Dynamite in January at Miami? Do you think this will have implications for their future, and how would the former hardcore viewers like the WCW faithfuls react to their strategy? So basically what you're asking me is my thoughts on WCW, or rather AEW, claiming the Bash at the Beach trademark. I would assume so. Otherwise, they would not call their show Bash at the Beach if they didn't own the trademark. If WWE still owned it, not that they would have used it. I mean, they owned Halloween Havoc for so many years, and they never used it, aside from their old pay-per-views on the network, which really boggled my mind. I think they ended up losing it in 2018, upon, the last time I checked anyway. But yeah, Bash at the Beach, I guess, is free to claim. I'm not sure if Cody owns it now or if they're just using it. I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's perfectly fitting for that show. They're going to be in Miami for that January 15th show, I think, right before the Jericho Cruise sets sail. And then the following week, the 22nd, I doubt it would be live, but they're filming the show from the cruise, which is pretty fucking cool, to be honest with you. I was hoping for that when they announced the cruise and that AEW guys would be on it. That's what they're doing, so that's pretty cool. They're not getting closer to becoming WCW 2.0 because of the name. If anything, I mean, there's other, comparisons you can make there with like the Bucks and Cody being top performers in AEW, being in charge of their own creative and stuff like that. Which even that so far has not been really that big of an issue. It's not like the Bucks put the World Tag Team titles on themselves or Cody put the World Championship on himself. That really hasn't been much of a problem anyway. So I wouldn't even really argue that as a point for them being WCW 2.0. But your question was, because they're using the old names like Bash at the Beach, and I could have sworn there was another one. I know they were trying to get their hands on other pay-per-view names like Starrcade. I don't really like that so much. As a one-off episode of Dynamite, who gives a shit? Like, I don't really care about that. As a pay-per-view, I'm not really that high on the idea of them using, like, if WWE, them using the Starrcade name as a fucking house show, I think is a bit stupid. I do agree with many people on that. But when it comes to bringing back these pay-per-views as actual pay-per-views, Halloween Havoc I wouldn't really have much of an issue with. I wouldn't do that with AEW, though. Now, it sounds weird. Like, why would you do it for WWE, not AEW? Because AEW has a lot going for it right now where the similarities are already there between WCW and AEW. Not overwhelmingly, but I wouldn't push that agenda by giving them the old WCW pay-per-view names. Just come up with your own pay-per-view names, and they have. Double or Nothing I like. All Out I like. Fyter Fest and Full Gear. I mean, I don't think they're using Fyter Fest. I'm not sure what they'd be using for that next pay-per-view, likely in February, I would imagine. I'm not sure what they're doing for that. It might be Fyter Fest or Fight for the Fallen. I don't think they're using Fight for the Fallen. I think they only did that as like a gun violence awareness thing, so I'm sure that's not an annual event. Maybe Fyter Fest. Same thing, though. I think they used that because it was part of like a gaming convention or some shit, so they might not use that either. But again, Double or Nothing I like, All Out I like. They're probably going to come up with a new name for that fourth pay-per-view, whatever it might be, which again is fine. But I would not have them resurrect old WCW pay-per-view names for the pay-per-views. You can bring them back as an occasional special on Dynamite. Like, for example, that October 30th episode of Dynamite would have been perfect if they were able to call it this Halloween Havoc. That would have been amazing. But you don't need to make an annual event out of it, like as a pay-per-view. There is a bit of a difference, just because I feel like they're WCW 2.0. If they're calling their pay-per-views by the same name that WCW would back in the day. But if they want to pay, homage to WCW by using those pay-per-view names as one-off specials on Dynamite, which aren't house shows like Starrcade, then I'm perfectly fine with that. And the Bash at the Beach thing makes perfect sense because they will be in Miami. And it's right before they set sail on the Jericho Cruise, so I don't really have much of an issue with that personally. FD's second question here. With Filthy Tom Lawler seemingly out of MLW just recently, do you see WWE scooping him up as another another MMA star coming to the company and trying to push SmackDown on Fox even more, and why? I was thinking about that recently. I had read about that about a week or so ago, that Filthy Tom Lawler was done in MLW, and I'm not overly familiar with his work. I don't know if I've ever even seen a match of his, but I do know who he is, that he was the MLW heavyweight champion for a while, that he is really, really good. He does come from the MMA world, and he has a lot of potential to be a big star in wrestling. I'm kind of surprised that he left MLW. He seemed like a mainstay there from what I understood, but he might have gotten a better offer from another promotion. Now, I have not heard much talk about WWE having interest or AEW having interest. I'm sure both promotions, they'd be dumb to not go after this guy. I know they, WWE wanted Jacob Fatu, however you pronounce his last name, who I think is the current MLW champion, or was the former MLW heavyweight champion. I don't remember. But he was another guy they were interested in. He passed on their offer. He stuck with MLW. Lawler, again, it would be dumb for them to not sign him. And I know they're really heavy on MMA stars anyway in WWE, between Brock. Ronda's still technically kind of there. Ronda, Brock, Cain Velasquez, Shayna, Jessamine Duke, Marina Shafir, Matt Riddle. So I could see why people would say, oh, WWE may not want Tom Lawler because they're already pretty heavy on MMA stars. But you can never have too much of anything, I would argue. I mean, again, there is a lot there, but the guy is really, really good. Why pass on him if the guy's really, really good? You know, it's like that old thing from years ago when they would pass on people that were under 200 pounds because they already had enough high flyers. They met their quota for really good wrestlers under 200 pounds. I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. If the guy's good enough, then fucking hire him. I understand don't hire him if you don't have any plans for him, but just to say, oh, we're not going to hire you because we already have enough people of your kind. Now, obviously, that sounds racist, but I'm talking about like size and stuff like that. I'm not talking about like, oh, we have enough black people on our roster or something like that, which would be incredibly racist. That would be an issue. But even, saying, hey, we don't want you because you're 200 pounds or whatever, because we already have enough of the cruiserweights on our roster, that was also an issue, and I'm glad they've kind of steered away from that. So with Tom Lawler, could I see him in WWE/NXT at some point? Absolutely. I have not read anything. I may have read reports about WWE, that they would have interest given his skill set. Not that they do have interest currently. They may, I'm not sure. Again, I would be surprised if they didn't. They're trying to sign everyone right now just to keep them from AEW. But if he doesn't end up in NXT, I'd be shocked if he didn't go to AEW because the guy is, again, really, really good. At noob_n_co 1991, his first question was, what are your thoughts on Stardom planning on bringing back Kairi Sane and Io Shirai? Yeah, I did read that report. So Stardom, they were recently bought out by, I think, the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And not that New Japan is going to start featuring women's matches on their shows. I guess Stardom just has more money behind it now. More money behind it now than it ever has before because of the new money from New Japan. So as a result, they want Sane and Shirai back, and they're going to offer them deals maybe that they can't refuse. And I guess according to the reports that I've read, not that Kairi Sane is unhappy in WWE and that she wants to go, that she wants to leave because she hates how she's been booked, whatever. The only reason I could see her leaving WWE is because she misses Japan and she misses being there. And maybe that's the case. Asuka, I guess to kind of answer your second question here, you had said, do you think Asuka is happy in the position that she's in currently? I've read that she's perfectly content, which I would think it'd be the other way around. I would think, maybe Asuka would want to leave. She hasn't really done too much on the main roster over the last 2 years. And again, that's not a lot of time, and she has become a SmackDown Women's Champion, Royal Rumble winner. But by and large, they have really fucked this woman over. She really should have been a much bigger star than she is at the moment. And yeah, she's a women's tag team champion. So again, it could be worse for her. It could be like Dana Brooke level or, friggin' Sarah Logan level or something like that. But still, she's not exactly at the same level that she was in NXT. Of course, bigger fish, smaller pond, but she still should be a bigger star on the main roster than she does find herself at the moment. So I would think maybe Asuka would want to leave, but I guess she's really happy with what she's either doing right now or just loves the fact that she's in the States. So I guess that she won't be leaving when her contract expires, whenever that might be. Kairi Sane, I can't say the same for her. Not that she hates how she's booked, but she might just prefer to live over in Japan. And can you blame her? I don't blame her at all. Io Shirai, both of them would be big losses. Because Kairi Sane and Io Shirai, WWE, these two women have been on their radar for years. I remember reading reports from, various websites back in 2016 that WWE wanted these two ladies after seeing them, maybe not as a result of this match, but they had that match with Pentagon Jr., Pentagon Dark on Lucha Underground 3 years ago. It was them and then someone else. They faced Pentagon a 3-on-1 gauntlet match, and they were fucking awesome. And they were great, and I was like, holy shit, they're so good. But they couldn't come over due to contract issues, and Io Shirai was injured, and they waited on her, and they hired Kairi Sane for the Mae Young Classic. She ended up coming over sooner than Shirai. But now they're both big stars. Sane, again, they could be doing more with her on the main roster. She is one half of the current tag team champions, but again, given her skill set and how popular she could be, she should be a bigger star, a lot like Asuka, than she is right now. Io Shirai just showed up in NXT. I know she's only been there for she's been there for a decent amount of time. She's been there for about a year now. She was in the Mae Young Classic. And in that time, she's been to the finals of the Mae Young Classic, competing at Evolution against Toni Storm, losing, but a great showing in defeat. She's gone on to contend for the AEW, the NXT Women's Championship. I'm looking at other questions here in my doc here. She went on to contend for the NXT Women's Championship. multiple times in the first few months of 2019, had great matches with Shayna Baszler and a few others, turned heel, had that amazing match with Candice back at TakeOver Toronto 2 in August, and she's been killing it ever since. So to lose Shirai, I would say, is an even bigger loss than Kairi Sane, but both would be huge losses, and they both really have just barely scratched the surface of what they can accomplish in WWE, and NXT for that matter, as far as Shirai goes. So I really hope they don't leave. But again, money talks, and if they're being offered big money deals to go back to their native Japan, I wouldn't blame them. So I guess we'll see how that shakes out in the coming months. AWSM Media guy from Twitter, his question was, who's got the biggest banger of a theme song in NXT right now? Great question. I mean, I could go with one of the obvious ones, like Ciampa or Gargano or Undisputed Era. Those are all pretty obvious. Keith Lee might lead the list. I fucking love Keith Lee's theme song. I love his theme song so much. He's got a banger of a theme song. I don't know if it's truly underappreciated, but because a lot of people recognize that it is good, but that really is a great song. And then two others that I thought of off the top of my head, Io Shirai, speaking of Shirai, she has such a great fucking theme song, and they really need to release that shit. I don't know if it's on YouTube or iTunes or whatever, but they need to release it somewhere because her theme song is great. And she's been using it now for close to 4 or 5 months, and they have yet to release it anywhere on YouTube. Maybe it's because CFO Money departed the company, I don't know. And they haven't updated any new themes on their WWE Music YouTube channel in months, in many, many months. So maybe that's why. But they need to get that shit up there ASAP. It's such a great song. And then the last one here that I'll mention, Isaiah Swerve Scott. He recently got a new theme, and I fucking love it. It goes swerve, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, that's terrible, but it goes something along those lines, and it's really fucking catchy. You can ask Alexis every time it comes on in NXT or 205 Live. I just break out and dance. And I rarely ever do that. I used to do that for the Brodus Clay theme song and a few others. Rarely do I do that, but I have since done it for the Isaiah Swerve Scott theme song. He's got a really good entrance theme. That's a fucking banger, too. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, his question was, do you think Kevin Owens or Daniel Bryan should win the Royal Rumble and go after the WWE Championship at WrestleMania? So Daniel Bryan, I mean, it would be cool to see Bryan and Brock again at WrestleMania, a match that people were pitching fucking 5-6 years ago. He's a SmackDown guy. If he wins the Rumble, could he go to Raw and face Brock? Yeah. Not really something would I want to see it? Yeah, but the guy's already getting a shot at the Universal Championship and will likely lose on Sunday. So they're going to really have to build him back up. If they had him win the Rumble and go after Bray Wyatt's Universal Championship, that would have been perfect. But he's already facing Bray on Sunday, so they're wasting that match. Of the two, honestly, I'd rather see Kevin Owens in that spot. He's really popular right now for whatever reason, because the booking has done him zero favors. This company has booked him into an oblivion over the course of 2019. Think about this for a second. I wrote a whole article about this, I think late last week for Bleacher Report, but he came back. He was off for a few months earlier on this year because of an injury. So he came back as a babyface randomly, was kind of positioned as a heel, even though he was a face, failed to become WWE champion, was left off WrestleMania. Why? I have no idea. Was left off WrestleMania, turned heel right afterwards. Cool. Failed to win the WWE Championship again multiple times. Went face again. Only a few months after that, the feud with Shane. Beat Shane multiple times. Was left off TV for a month and is now back on Raw doing nothing. And yes, he will be on Survivor Series representing Raw. But other than that, though, the guy has been doing a whole lot of nothing for the past month or two since he was drafted to Raw. They really should have never moved him from the SmackDown brand, but it's not like SmackDown's that much better off. So it doesn't really matter, I guess. But anyway, Kevin Owens versus a guy like a Brock at WrestleMania. Unbelievable right now, sure, but if they build up Owens enough between now and then, and it's possible, and again, the issue is, I've said this before, where, it's in November, they have enough time between now and Mania to build up so-and-so, and they never do, because they wait until the last fucking second, and then it doesn't mean anything. Like Finn Balor, for example. Finn Balor and Brock, is it a WrestleMania-worthy match? Not necessarily, but I think it was a few years ago. They were going to do Balor and Brock at Survivor Series, maybe 2 years ago, and they passed on it because Balor, he was hot at the time. Why they passed on it, I don't know. But I'm thinking, okay, there's still enough time between now and the Rumble to get him hot for that match, and they didn't do that either. They just continue to waste the guy. He faced fucking Kurt Hawkins on Raw. It was terrible. So, and then they waited too long, and by that point, the guy meant nothing. So when it comes to Kevin Owens, I would ideally like to see him booked better in the next couple of months as a top-tier talent on Raw, and then hopefully go for the WWE Championship. Because when I look at that Raw roster, and I've said this before to Alexis and other people, there is no one person that stands out to me as being the person to beat Brock for that championship. Aside from Rollins or Roman, who have already proven they can beat Brock Lesnar, aside from them, and I don't want to see that again, no one else jumps out to me as being dominant enough to beat Brock Lesnar. And fuck, by the time Survivor Series rolls around, it may not even matter. Rey Mysterio may be the new WWE champion, which would be amazing. I don't expect that to happen, so that's why I'm already predicting he's going to lose. But that being said, who from that Raw roster? I mean, yeah, someone from SmackDown could win the Rumble too, but even then, who from SmackDown or Raw could currently feasibly beat Brock Lesnar for that championship? It's the same question we ask every fucking year. I understand that. But so far, it's been nobody. The only people who have beaten Brock in recent years are Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Goldberg. And all of those guys are in a league of their own. No one else on the roster comes close to being the stars that they are currently. They are currently positioned as the faces of Raw and SmackDown. Not even Kevin Owens feels like a threat to Brock Lesnar after being, fucking wasted for the better part of 2019. Maybe 5 years ago when he first got hired and he was dominant in NXT and then in the main roster when he first showed up. Other than that, though, Kevin Owens has never really felt like a true threat to Brock Lesnar. And again, that could change. I just don't see it happening. So Kevin Owens would be cool, but again, if it's not KO or whatever, Daniel Bryan doesn't feel like a threat. I mean, Brock just beat Cain Velasquez in 2 minutes of Crown Jewel. What would make Daniel Bryan a threat to Brock Lesnar currently? Aleister Black? I mean, maybe. But again, the guy's been fucking sitting backstage, shitting on the toilet, which is why he didn't knock on the, answer the fucking door when Buddy Murphy knocked on it on Monday. He doesn't feel like a threat either. They really got to heat a lot of these people up between now and Mania so they feel important enough to be in a top-tier match on that card. They all deserve to be, but it's a matter of getting them ready for that spot. And the fault there lies with WWE. So Kevin Owens, ideally of the two, I would like to see go for the WWE title at WrestleMania if Brock is very likely still in possession of it at that point. Other than Kevin Owens, though, no one really stands out to me as being an obvious candidate to face Brock Lesnar for that championship at Mania. Bryan would be cool, but it's going to be hard to take him seriously after he loses to Daniel Bryan, or rather to the Fiend Bray Wyatt on Sunday. He could always bounce back and win the Rumble. He win the Rumble that he never could, years ago, when people were like, oh, have Bryan win the Rumble. I feel like that ship sailed. That ship sailed in 2014, 2015, even 2016. It would be a cool story to tell, but I don't see it happening. At RJ_Marceau, my brother Mr. Marceau, his question was, do you think Kaylee Ray can be a mainstay on NXT? Currently, no, just because she's the current NXT UK Women's Champion. Now, obviously, Rhea Ripley's been appearing on NXT a lot more lately, which is cool. She was already the NXT UK Women's Champion. She failed to regain it. She's still on NXT UK. She was in a tag team match like a week or two ago on the show alongside Piper Niven, beating Ginny and Jazzy Gabbard, I think. So she's still on the show, but she's on NXT way more, which makes sense because, again, she's already kind of done it all in NXT UK, faced everyone, beaten everyone, won the championship, lost it. Toni Storm, I'm not sure what's taken her so long, but I would assume she is also on her way to NXT sooner rather than later. Kaylee Ray, I mean, yeah, she could appear in both brands. That's fine. She is the champion over there, but it's not like she's going for any championships. I feel like this is really a one and done for her to gain extra exposure for the NXT UK brand. And just fill out Team Baszler. That's really about it. They don't really need her in NXT UK at the moment. She is really good, and maybe after she drops the championship, she can be an NXT proper more often in the future. But for right now, though, NXT UK, or NXT rather, just regular, normal, doesn't really need her. They have a lot of other women so far. There's a lot of women not even on that TakeOver card on Saturday. So I would say no, but in the future, for sure. RJ's second question, how great of a pairing is MJF with Wardlow? Yeah, they're great. I really like that pairing a lot. I was curious what they would do with Wardlow. They've been building him up for a while now. Not consistently, but they aired a vignette for him at, I think, All Out a few months ago. Then nothing. Maybe one more vignette on Dynamite a few weeks ago, and then that was it. But it was cool to see him with MJF, and of course we'll find out on Dynamite tonight. But I would hope that MJF is the focal point of that pairing there, and it's not MJF serving as a mouthpiece for Wardlow. I mean, I'm not sure how good Wardlow is. He might be great, but MJF is the real star there. He shouldn't be the mouthpiece for Wardlow or like the Sami Zayn and his Shinsuke Nakamura. I would rather not see that. I would rather see MJF in the ring and Wardlow serving as his heavy. I would assume that's the role, that's the dynamic they're going to go with, but you never know. So hopefully that's what they go with. But bottom line, though, I do like the pairing a lot. I think it's a great use of Wardlow because otherwise he doesn't really fit in anywhere else at the moment, and it gets him, associated with the top heel right from the get-go. So I like that idea a lot. RJ's third question here. At the time and looking back at it, Survivor Series 2005 may have had one of my favorite traditional 5-on-5 matches. They had great build, and the match was good as well. What are some of your favorite 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches? It's a good question. That was a great match. I assume you're talking about the Raw versus SmackDown one. Probably the only time the Raw versus SmackDown feud ever really meant anything was back at that point when they never really crossed the brands much, and it meant something for SmackDown to invade Raw and vice versa. They did it again in 2009 and 2010 with bragging rights. It meant nothing. They've done this brand supremacy shit with Raw and SmackDown and now NXT since 2016. And again, it never really has meant anything because nothing's on the line. But that Raw and SmackDown match in 2005, well, yeah, nothing was on the line, but it had a really, really good build. I think it started actually at the Raw Homecoming show in early October. SmackDown invaded at the end of the night because I think there was supposed to be a SmackDown match in the show, and they got bumped for whatever reason, from a storyline standpoint. So they retaliated by having the entire roster crash the show at the end there, setting the stage and planting the seeds for the Raw and SmackDown Survivor Series Elimination Tag Team match at Survivor Series in November. I don't know if that would be among my favorite, but it was a really, really good match. They had a great match on that show. It might be top 5, actually, if I went back and watched it. That was a good one. Team WWF versus Team WCW at Survivor Series 01. I'm not a big Invasion fan at all, but I can't deny that was a great match. The 03 one that RJ and I mentioned many, many times, we talk about it at length on Thursday's Wrestle Rant Radio, which we recorded last night, so check it out tomorrow for our full predictions for TakeOver on Saturday and Survivor Series on Sunday. We went into great depth discussing the Survivor Series 03 Team Bischoff versus Team Austin match, which was really, really good. That would definitely be my top 5. That was a really good match. Beyond 05, the well runs dry in terms of matches that really stood out to me as being great in the 5-on-5 setting. There were some that I thought were good and had some cool moments, but none that I would say, oh, were great or I would watch back consistently. 06, 07, 08 all had good ones. None that I would say, oh my God, that was amazing. 09, same thing. Kofi Kingston got his big moment when he beat CM Punk and Orton within seconds of each other, actually. That was cool, but the actual match, I can't say, it was a barn burner. It was amazing. It was good, but it wasn't really until the finish that it was considered a hot moment. 2010 had a completely forgettable 5-on-5 elimination match. 2011 had some good ones. They might have only had one that year. I feel like they had 2, but they definitely had one with Team Barrett versus Team Orton. And I thought that was a really good match, if only because Barrett and Rhodes won. They were the sole survivors for their team, and I thought they worked really well together. So I like that match. That would probably be my top 5 as well, probably towards the bottom, but I thought that was a good match too. 2012 had a good one, Team Orton and Team Ziggler. Good match. Love that Ziggler won, again, beating Randy Orton. I thought that was great. 2013, The Shield. I think Roman Reigns was the sole survivor for his team, eliminating like 4 guys. And I think lastly eliminating Rey Mysterio to win it. That was a really good match. 2014 would probably be my favorite, to be honest with you. Team Cena versus Team Authority might be the only Survivor Series match I've gone out of my way to rewatch multiple times since it happened 5 years ago. The whole match, very good build. The first time in many years I was actually excited for Survivor Series, and this match was slotted as the main event of the show. Nothing else in that show came close to being as good as this. It wasn't a great show, but the main event with Team Cena and Team Authority was awesome. So you had Cena's team consisting of himself, Ryback, who was a bit of an X factor. He got eliminated within minutes, which was bizarre. And I actually asked Ryback about that when I interviewed him over the summer, and he was like, he agreed, was like, that was fucking weird. Like, why would you do that? It seemed really stupid at the time, and it's still stupid 5 years later, because he was coming off a hot babyface turn at the time. But anyway, it was Cena, Ryback, Eric Rowan, which is random, I know, but he was, a babyface at the time. He had just come back from the hiatus after the Wyatt family broke up. He was feuding with Luke Harper. Eric Rowan, Cena, who was the other one I just mentioned? Ryback. And then you also had Dolph Ziggler, who was a sole survivor, which was cool. They went nowhere with that, but it was still cool. And then Big Show, who ended up turning heel, predictably enough. And then Team Authority was Seth Rollins, Luke Harper, who I think was the Intercontinental Champion going into that match. Harper, Rollins, Mark Henry, who was taken out almost immediately. He was probably hurt or something, which is why they did that. But he took out Mark Henry immediately. Rusev, who had a pretty good showing. He was undefeated back then. And then Kane. Corporate Kane was one of the guys on that team too. But that was an amazing match. And again, the whole match had the perfect layout. It was given a ton of time. And then, of course, culminating in the amazing, unpredictable, unforgettable debut of Sting at the end of the match, the WWE debut of Sting, when he came down, laid out Triple H, gave the victory to Ziggler. I thought that whole thing was perfectly booked. I remember being so excited after that match. And no other match in recent memory at Survivor Series has made me feel the same way I did on that night. The 2015 show was a complete wash. No real good Survivor Series elimination matches on that show. 2016, though, I will say, if it's not the 2014 one as being my favorite, the 2016 one comes close. With Team Raw, Team SmackDown for the men. That I remember being a really, really good match. It was Team Raw consisting of Rollins, Owens, Jericho, Strowman, and Roman, I want to say. I think it was Roman, Rollins, Jericho, Owens, and Strowman. And then for SmackDown, it was AJ, Ambrose, Shane, Wyatt, and Randy Orton. And I think it was Wyatt and Orton as the sole survivors. That was an awesome match, too. Again, great layout. And again, the Raw and SmackDown shit didn't really matter. But it was cool to see SmackDown win, ultimately, for that match. And the entire layout, by and large, was really well done. I remember really, really liking that match, too. In recent years, 2017, did they have any good elimination matches? I remember being disappointed by the Team Raw, Team SmackDown match, so probably not for that one, for the men's anyway. Last year, same thing, I remember being completely underwhelmed. I think Team Raw won all their matches, but that match specifically, I don't really remember anything overly special about it, but yeah, in a nutshell, I would say the 2016 Team Raw, Team SmackDown match for the men was great. 2014 Team Cena versus Team Authority would probably be my number one. But also in my top five are the 05 Team Raw, Team SmackDown match, 03 Team Bischoff, Team Austin, and probably the 2011 Team Barrett versus Team Orton match. And then honorable mentions would, of course, include the Team WCW versus Team WWF from 01. There's been other good ones like from the 90s, but I'm not all that like nostalgic about the 90s because, of course, I wasn't watching back then. So none of those really stand out to me as being overly great, but they are, solid for the most part. Next question comes from, at Thomas B96. His question was, at Thomas _B96 to be specific. His question was, do you think Jim Cornette is a concern for NWA despite his commentary skills? So he asked that last night. So what happened to catch people up to date here? On NWA Power last night, during a match between Nick Aldis and Trevor Murdoch, which was a good match. But the focus was on anything but the match. It was on anything but the show. It was on Jim Cornette on commentary, who does commentary on the show with Joe Galley, I think his name is. He's pretty good. Jim Cornette I really like as well. I'm a big Jim Cornette guy. He does say a lot of dumb shit, I will say that. But I do like Jim Cornette. He's very controversial. But as a commentator, he's good. But during the match, he had said something along the lines of, like, if Trevor Murdoch had bananas on his back, he could run through Ethiopia with bananas on his back and he wouldn't be caught, or something like that. Something that sounded really, really racist. And I'm sure he didn't mean any ill will towards that by that comment. But I could absolutely understand why it could be perceived as racially insensitive or just flat out racist. So I could see and understand why they took it out. It wasn't one of those things where, the world is too PC. And sometimes I would agree. In this case, though, I think it's more a case of Jim Cornette says a lot of dumb shit. And I do blame him 100%. But my question is, how the fuck on a tape show did this get through? The show's been in the can now for a long time. They produce all the shows themselves. They probably have a bunch of people go through it and watch it before it goes live on YouTube. How the fuck does that make the air without being removed first? That makes absolutely no sense. So I was a bit more concerned about that, and they made the right move. They took it off of YouTube. They re-uploaded the video with the line removed. But still, that was in poor taste. So NWA apologized last night, which they did. This has already happened like multiple times. I think it was either last week or the week before. Cornette again said something stupid on Twitter, not on NWA Power, but he said something dumb elsewhere, and they had to apologize then too, saying that, yeah, he apologized, he didn't mean it. The NWA doesn't reflect his, we don't, have the same opinions as Cornette, whatever. They were basically trying to defend themselves for having this guy under contract, despite the fact he's kind of a polarizing figure in many ways. And then he pulled this shit. So they apologized for what he said last night, and then this morning I wake up to the news that they actually, they said that he resigned, but I'm sure it was like a forced decision. I had read somewhere else that they got rid of him, so I assume it was more of a case of, hey, this probably isn't great for right now. Maybe we'll bring you back down the line, but at least for right now, you're bringing a lot of negative publicity to the show, so we're going to have to let you go. So I'm sure it was like a, hey, will you just resign, or we'll let you go ourselves, like whatever you want to do. I assume it was that type of situation, because otherwise I find it hard to believe that Jim Cornette would just be up and he would just quit. Just be like, oh, fuck this show. I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about it in his next podcast in a few days, whether that's tomorrow or Friday, today, I don't know. I don't listen to the show every week. But it should be a must listen for sure to see his side of the story. They absolutely made the right call. And again, I like Jim Cornette a lot, but if the guy keeps saying dumb shit on his show and on Twitter, and specifically on the show that he's doing commentary for, that's crossing the line. He shouldn't be saying that shit anyway. But if it's on their show, and NWA made a big mistake, not that they're completely in the clear for this, because they made a big mistake by not editing that line out before that. Why would anyone think that's a perfectly, fine line to use on commentary or whatever? And again, I'm sure he didn't mean anything racist towards it. To say anything racist on not national television, but on any major wrestling promotion show in 2019 just seems insanely stupid. So again, I'm sure he didn't mean anything by that, and as far as that goes, but it was still stupid. It could be perceived that way. It got a lot of bad publicity, and not just one person that was offended. It was a lot of people. A lot of people I saw on my timeline saying that, hey, I'm not watching the show anymore. So, whether he's on the show or not, whether it's Jim Cornette on commentary or not, that's unacceptable. And again, I don't blame him. So, it was a shitty situation. They made the right move by firing him. It sucks. Because again, I like Jim Cornette. I like his commentary. He has a lot of history with the NWA. And it would have been cool to see him managing the Revival. If they end up there, if NWA is still around by the time that the Revival leave WWE, they make a quick stop there before AEW. That would have been perfect. That would have been the place where we get the Revival and Jim Cornette finally in the same place at the same time. But unfortunately, it will not be meant to be just because he's been since let go. He could always be brought back down the road, but I'm sure that wouldn't go over too well. So, in the meantime, I'm not overly surprised they let him go, and I absolutely defend their decision to fire him just because of all the bad press that he's, brought to NWA since the start of the promotion. At Michael Network 9, will Roman Reigns win the Royal Rumble? I don't think so. I guess he could. A bunch of people have won it for the second time in recent years, whether it be John Cena, 5-6 years ago, Batista, Randy Orton, Triple H, have all won it multiple times in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. This year, like I said, there's no one real obvious answer. I think we even knew at this time a year ago that Rollins was winning the Royal Rumble. It just made the most sense. Whether it was Roman as champion or Brock as champion, we all kind of assumed it would be Rollins winning the Rumble. This time around, I really can't say for sure. I guess it could be Rollins again or Roman again. I would hope not. I like when fresh faces win the Rumble, unless it makes sense for someone to win it for a second time. So Owens, like I said earlier, would be ideal, in my opinion. Not completely ruling out a Roman Reigns win in the Rumble. And honestly, from a storyline standpoint, it would kind of make some sense. I think it would ruin any goodwill he's built up with the fans in recent months, just because he hasn't been overly pushed, he hasn't been in the main event scene, and that won't last forever. He will be back in the World Championship scene on SmackDown eventually. But Roman Reigns versus The Fiend for the Universal Championship at Mania doesn't do a hell of a whole lot for me. So, that being said, I really don't want to see that match happen. Again, from a storyline standpoint, it would be logical. It wouldn't come completely out of nowhere. Because you got to remember, Roman Reigns was forced to vacate the Universal Championship, that very title, a year ago, and he was never given an opportunity to get it back. I don't think he's had one single shot at the World Championship, either World Championship, since he came back from his sickness earlier this year. So something should be said for that as well, and it's really only a matter of when and not if he'll be back in the main event scene as a World Championship contender, and it could very well be at WrestleMania. That being said, though, there are ways to get to that story without repeating history by having him win the Rumble and get booed all over again. I would rather see him go for the championship maybe at Mania via the Elimination Chamber by winning the Elimination Chamber or something along those lines. But even that, though, on paper, maybe Bray loses it between now and then, but Roman and Bray on paper just does nothing for me. We've seen the feud before. Granted, it was Roman and Bray. Their chemistry was good. It wasn't great. But Bray being built up to just lose to Roman seems, not that it's appropriate because Bray's been in this position before. That's the only reason why I would say it'd be appropriate. It seems only fitting that he'd be built up to lose to someone like Roman. But in a perfect world, I would rather see someone else benefit from beating The Fiend finally, whether it be a Bryan or I'm not even really sure who else there is on SmackDown, but someone along those lines would be a lot more welcome than Roman Reigns, even though it really is, again, more a matter of when and not if he will be Universal Champion again, as he should be. At Reborn Again, John Ritland, Real Honesty with John Ritland on the YouTube channel. Great show. Check it out per usual. As always, it does great content. But his first question was, so did you hear about the what Jim Cornette said on NWA Power this week? And if so, what are your thoughts? Already discussed this earlier, but like I said, it was, again, I wasn't overly offended or anything, but I could see it was a really dumb thing to say, and they absolutely should have cut it before it made the air. It's not a live show. It's been in the can for a while now. There was plenty of time for them to remove that line, but they didn't, and they kept it live, and it was just disgusting. So I'm glad they removed it, and I'm glad they took the appropriate action by firing Jim Cornette. But it might be too little too late because a lot of people have already said, hey, I'm not watching again. And then that's a big deal. Not like one or two people, but I saw a bunch of people say, I'm not watching again because of this. And it's not like, oh, the booking is bad. Like, for that to happen, again, if you don't want to watch because of the booking, that's one thing, then whatever. But if you're not watching because you're offended by something, that's an issue with the promotion. So I'm glad they took appropriate action in getting rid of him. But again, I know you, John, are a Jim Cornette fan. I am as well. But it's hard to defend the guy. I mean, it was a dumb thing to say. And again, he may not have meant anything bad by it. But at the same time, though, you got to be more aware of what you're saying and the implications it may have in 2019. And it's not a current year thing. Like, obviously, times are different from 20 years ago. Jesse Ventura may have said something like that 30 years ago, and no one would have batted an eyelash. It's a different world we live in now. And I completely understand why people would be offended. So I'm glad they got rid of the line. I'm glad they got rid of Jim Cornette. The guy is great, but he's not worth all the bad publicity this company has gotten since it started about a month ago, since the show started about a month ago. His second question, did WWE undercut the NXT aspect of Survivor Series with War Games taking place the night before? I don't know if it's exactly undercutting NXT, but it doesn't help. They are working around it nicely. I mean, the thing is that they're all rivals on Wednesday, and then come Survivor Series, come Raw, and come SmackDown, they're all working together towards a common cause. I fucking hate that shit, because why would you bother fight for your brand? NXT, I can kind of see the brand loyalty there, because NXT means a lot to those guys, and it's developmental. I get it. It still is developmental. Don't get it twisted. But the whole Raw and SmackDown nonsense, like the Street Profits fighting for Raw, even though they just joined the Raw roster a month ago after being in NXT for like 2 or 3 years, makes absolutely no sense. So, that being said, with War Games and that whole thing, they didn't undercut NXT, but it doesn't exactly help. Again, they have worked around it nicely, though. We still don't know, as of this recording, who Team NXT will consist of for Survivor Series on Sunday, but it won't be Adam Cole. So it's not like Cole's going to be teaming with Ciampa and Lee and Riddle, all these people he'll be facing on Saturday. That would be stupid. So thankfully they're not doing that, but it's still not the smartest of ideas. But if nothing else, it's refreshing to see NXT involved in the Survivor Series build. I will say that. One of the better builds to the brand supremacy shit we've seen in a while. Still not great, but better than anything I've seen from Raw and from SmackDown on the road to Survivor Series in at least, again, 3 or 4 years. And that says more about the build to Survivor Series than anything else, because this year it's not been amazing, at least overall. Initially it was. In recent weeks, not so much. But that just goes to show how watered down this brand supremacy nonsense has been since it started 3 years ago. And his third question here, will AEW be able to turn their women's division around in the near future, or has the company already set the standard of it being treated as a novelty act? No, I think it's still early. That's not a defense of AEW in their women's division. And I said that before on Twitter. I've forgotten what context. It might have been during an episode of Dynamite a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. But I tweeted out, listen, it's a fucking joke that this company's been around now since January. They ran their first show 6 months ago. I know Dynamite started a month ago, but still, that's no excuse. Their women's division is shit. They have some really good wrestlers there. They're not doing a lot with most of them. And they took steps towards that on Dynamite last week. I think they ran 2 angles with the women on the show, if I remember correctly, which was good, but they need more than that. And they need to be better angles, like Rio and Emi Sakura, I think is how you pronounce her last name. Good match. Why should I give a shit? Aside from that one video package they did on the night of the pay-per-view at Full Gear, why should I give a fuck about their feud? So I wasn't a big fan of that. And what they've been doing overall with the women since the start of AEW. But there is absolutely time to turn it around. Bring in more people. Utilize who you have better and not focus everything around Britt Baker and Rio, and every 2 seconds it's about Britt Baker and Rio. Build up Penelope Ford. Build up, and again, I understand building up 1 or 2 people at a time because it's hard to build up, 10 people at one time that fans aren't familiar with. But still, they have AEW Dark and they're running matches that don't really mean anything. They need to do a better job of showcasing these women. So it's not a lost cause. They're not damaged goods. They will be better than they are currently. The only direction they can go from here is up. I'd be shocked if they remained, if they just flatlined from here on out, that the women's division doesn't continue to improve. I'd be shocked. So this is really only the beginning. That's not a defense, again, of AEW. I will be the first one to say they are 6 months in here. I'm counting Double or Nothing as they've had women's matches in every pay-per-view since then. And these women's matches should mean more than they do. These feuds, these women themselves should mean more than they do. It's not their fault. They're very talented, but they're not being showcased properly. 6 months in, should have been better by now, but it still could be good with the right booking and character development in the months ahead. At Scarlet One, their first question was, since you mentioned the movie before, thoughts on the new Sonic redesign and new trailer for the 2020 live-action remake? Interestingly, the original release date would have been last week. I did see the new trailer. It was much better than the first. The first one looked fucking terrible. And when I heard it was coming out in January, I watched the second trailer. And maybe not January. Is it January or is it like April? I don't remember. Maybe April. But anyway, pretty sure it's April. I don't remember. But either way, I saw the new release date and I'm like, why would they put out a trailer over the spring for a movie that's not coming out until next year? Isn't that weird? So then I honestly didn't even realize until you mentioned in your tweet here that the movie was supposed to be released this month. I forgot to put, I didn't even know it got pushed back. I forgot it was even supposed to come out this month. I mean, I remember seeing the first trailer and thinking, wow, that looks like shit. That looks fucking terrible. And I'm not a big Sonic guy anyway. I played some of the video games and stuff like that. But, I mean, I didn't even see the Detective Pikachu. I heard it was good. I want to see it. I just never got around to seeing it. This movie I would have only seen because it looks so bad. And Jim Carrey, I'm a fan of. He hasn't really been in anything good. I mean, he really hasn't been in much period over the years. Jim and Andy was good, but that was more of a documentary on Netflix a couple of years ago. Like Bruce Almighty, maybe, was the last really good movie I saw him in. And even that's kind of, it's a good movie. It's not like a classic, but that's from 2003. It's almost 20 years ago. Still, so yeah, I saw the new trailer. It was good. Not only was the redesign better, which was absolutely necessary, the fucking human-like looking Sonic was terrifying. The teeth, the eyes, the hair, the feet, the legs. Oh God, the legs. It looks so creepy. I know they were trying to make it more human-like, like Pikachu, I guess, but it still looked fucking dumb. It looked really stupid. I mean, I know Sonic isn't a real animal. Pikachu's not a real animal. Pikachu looked, I mean, Pikachu is naturally cute. Regardless of what way that you make him out to be in live action movies and animation, he's just a cute character. Sonic isn't exactly cute. So when you take him from his original form into what he is or what he was in that first trailer, it doesn't look pretty. So just keep him true to the character. I know it doesn't exactly look realistic, but who gives a shit? No one's going to see this movie for a realistic Sonic. Who gives a fuck? And not only did he look better, the actual trailer for the movie looked better too. I doubt they changed the story of the movie, but from what they included in the bits and parts that they included and the chemistry that he had with the main character, whose name escapes me right now, it looked a lot better than what I saw originally in that first trailer 6 months ago. So I am a fan of it. Will I see the movie? Probably not. If I hear it's amazing, then maybe. Otherwise, probably no. But it was cool they fixed it. And, honestly, most movie studios wouldn't do that. Most places would absolutely not do that. They would be like, you know what? Tough shit, fucking deal with it. If the movie looks like shit, then fucking deal with it. One movie that comes to mind for me, and again, this might be a little different because it wasn't animation or anything, the Ghostbusters movie. Not the original. That's a classic, one of my favorite movies of all time. The Women's Ghostbusters, when they put out the trailer for that in early 2016, it got like one of the biggest like-to-dislike ratios because of all the dislikes on the video, like in YouTube history. And again, that was different. People were going to shit on it no matter what. If they edited the movie between then and when it came out, it wouldn't have mattered because it was more the fact that there were female Ghostbusters, which that wasn't why I had an issue with it. I saw the movie, I think twice actually, which is weird, but I saw it with my family, and then I think I saw it with another member of my family after I saw it the first time. I didn't mind the movie. It wasn't great. I don't know if I would ever watch it again. But it's nothing like the original. And it wasn't the fact that they were female Ghostbusters. It was the fact that it just wasn't funny. It was just stupid. And I like the callbacks to the original. I appreciated that, but it just was a really unnecessary movie. With Sonic, it's different because again, the reason people shit on that was because of the animation of Sonic largely, and because the movie looked like shit. They probably just included different parts in the trailer. That's not to say just because Sonic was redesigned, the movie will be better. Who knows? But again, most movie companies would be like, fucking just deal with it, and it is what it is. We'll take this publicity and we'll run with it. But that's not what they're doing. That's not what they're doing at all, and I think that's great. Reportedly, they put, according to one source I read online, $5 million into delaying the project until next year, which is a lot of money. And again, I appreciate the effort. I thought it came out really, really good. So that's cool. And again, with the female Ghostbusters thing, this isn't really relevant to the question, I understand, but that was different because you're not going to recast the entire Ghostbusters movie before it comes out. Because again, the whole purpose of the movie was for the first time ever to have female Ghostbusters. And that's why people didn't like it, which was kind of stupid, but it really was not a good movie because it was just not funny. And that's not because they're female, comedians or whatever. I think Melissa McCarthy, I actually like most of her movies, believe it or not. Just the chemistry they had with, I like Chris Hemsworth, but just the story wasn't good. It was just a really stupid movie. Hopefully Sonic is better, though. Scarlett's next question here. Best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars number 7. Again, really not much bad at all. The only bad I can think of from NXT last week was the Xia Li-Aaliyah match. And even that was, necessary in getting over Xia Li, and it was short and sweet. It was whatever. It wasn't a good match, and Aaliyah she's been in the company now for 4 or 5 years, and she's still as fucking mediocre as shit. So I really don't see why she's on TV as much as she is, aside from just taking losses. But anyway, so that was really the only worst of NXT. The ladder match was great. I thought that was a tremendous match. Roderick Strong and Keith Lee, really, really good match. What was another match from that show I thought was really good? I don't remember. Was it Isaiah Swerve Scott and Bronson Reed? They had a really good match too. I think Finn Balor cut a promo. That was good. So yeah, overall it was a really good show. And then Dynamite. I thought NXT was the better show last week. Dynamite was still solid though. I was not a fan, and I've said this before. I went on a rant about this on Wrestle Rant Radio on Thursday last week. I was not a fan of Jericho getting pinned. And maybe that's just me. And it's like, I know it's not a big deal because it wasn't a one-on-one match. But if you're going to give Scorpio Sky, who I think is great, don't get me wrong. The guy's a really good wrestler. He is a guy to watch out for. But to have him, of all people, pin Jericho for the first time in AEW, I thought was kind of stupid. And maybe it was a Jericho call, but because the guy's put over everyone under the sun over the years. He's lost to fucking JTG, Heath Slater, you name him, he's lost one. Fandango at WrestleMania. He's one of the least selfish people, one of the most selfless people I have ever seen in wrestling for the people that he's allowed to beat him over the years, specifically in WWE. But still, what's the point of power rankings if you're just going to have some random tag team champion pin your fucking world champion? I know they need to fill TV time between now and the next pay-per-view, but then fucking have whoever's number one in the power rankings go for the title. It makes absolutely no sense. I was really pissed off about that. That and the inside cradle bullshit is fucking dumb. Stop with the inside cradle nonsense, AEW. They hit everything under the sun. They hit all their finishers, and then it's a fucking inside cradle that does them in. They do this all too often, and it's so annoying. That kind of pissed me off, but the match was fine. The Wardlow debut, the MJF Jericho segment was far and away the highlight of the night. That was the best thing on the entire show. Paige and Pac had a really good match. Forgot what else was even on the show, but I do remember those matches, and they were all really good. The Young Bucks Santana Ortiz attack was well done. I don't think Omega wasn't on the show. Moxley faced Nakazawa. His promo was really good. So yeah, overall a really good show. The Darby Allin triple threat match with him beating Sean Spears and Jimmy Havoc, maybe? I don't remember who the third person was. It was Sean Spears and then it was Peter Avalon. He pinned Peter Avalon to win. That was fine. So overall, two very good shows per usual. Their next question, thoughts on WWE backstage and CM Punk's presence and comments. I fucking loved it. Again, I'm a CM Punk mark, so of course I would enjoy it. But overall, I thought it was exactly what I was hoping for and exactly what I wanted it to be. Did not disappoint. Punk was, again, my biggest concern with Punk being on the show, even before he came on the show a week ago, when, there were reports that Fox passed on him, they didn't want Punk, whatever. I was thinking, okay, that makes sense, because they're not going to want someone on the show who just shits on the product. But that's exactly what he did last night. And again, maybe it was a one-time thing. He won't be back next week as far as I know. I don't know if I'll be watching next week. But the episode that he was on last night, because I thought he may be on just for one segment. They weren't really clear about that early on because he wasn't in the opening of the show. But then they had Renee Young interview him, which was great because Renee Young is so great at her job. She's tremendous. They have great chemistry. Love the interview. The promo battle shit was great. Punk going off on Rollins and Tom Arnold, I think his name was really cool. Just a really good show overall, and I was thoroughly entertained. He shit on the King Corbin segment, as he should have. It was fucking garbage. It was dog shit, no pun intended. That segment from SmackDown was terrible, and I like King Corbin, I really do, but the segment was terrible. That he pooped on the blue Universal title, as he should have. It's not a good looking title. Oh, it's better than the red one, dude. That's like comparing fucking dog shit to cat shit. Like, I don't want to eat either of them. They're both garbage. You know what I mean? Like, they're both shit. So I like that he did that. But I don't want him to shit on the WWE just for the sake of shitting on WWE. Because he had some positive comments too. He had said, when asked about Brock and Rey Mysterio, who he, knows all too well. Both guys he's had great feuds with over the years. Two better feuds of his entire career, with Rey Mysterio first in 2010, then Brock Lesnar in the summer of 2013, one of my favorite matches of Punk's. He talked about how, he shit on the product at first, but then he goes, listen, when pro wrestling is great, it's fucking great. And this has the potential to be really, really good. When talking about Rey Mysterio versus Brock Lesnar, if Rey's healthy and Brock is motivated, this could be a really good match, and he hit the nail right on the fucking head. So I really like the analysis and the insight that Punk brings to the show as a former wrestler, someone that's been away for a while now, hasn't really watched the product. Is he, I would say not as jaded on it because he hasn't watched the product in 6 years, but of course he's jaded because the guy got burned out from it in 2014, so maybe that's the wrong word to use here. But still, he's a fresh face, and people are very excited. Argue all you want about Punk, but people are still interested to hear what he has to say on wrestling. And he also said that NXT's doing their thing. He thinks that's cool. The women are killing it, which is cool. Big fan of that. So, I thought it went off really, really well. Very excited for the next episode that he's on. And not the Jim Cornette. I almost said Jim Cornette. David Arquette. Got the Ets mixed up there at the end. But David Arquette, the whole promo battle that he did with Booker T was very entertaining, and Punk commenting on it was great. Punk told Seth Rollins in so many words to just stop tweeting and shut his mouth, which Rollins, advice that Rollins did not follow, only to tweet, 10 minutes later on Twitter back at Punk saying, I forgot even what, he called him a coward or something. He's like, oh, what a response, called him a coward, whatever. It was really funny though. So yeah, definitely worth watching. And I'm very excited for the next time that CM Punk is on WWE Backstage. And their last question here, which brand will reign supreme at Survivor Series, and will the results be relevant by next month? That second part of your question really sums it up. None of this fucking matters. Which brand will reign supreme? Who cares? Like, if NXT does, it'd be awesome. Obviously, they won't. It will be Raw, almost guaranteed. I know Fox is their baby now. Raw is almost always one. I don't see that changing this year. It very well may, but who even cares, you know? Will it be relevant? Absolutely not. Absolutely not will it be relevant. That's what I got to say about that. And its final question for today's show, at Time Bomb Zone via Twitter: should Kevin Owens be the top face of Raw instead of Seth Rollins? Yes, he should be. I wrote a whole article about this for Bleacher Report, as they mentioned earlier, about a week ago, about how Owens, despite his bad booking in 2019 overall, is still very much over with the audience. It was evident last week on Raw in Manchester, England, and it was evident again on Monday in, I think, Philly or wherever they were. You got a big reaction then, too, one of the bigger pops the entire show. So Owens as the top face of Raw would be way more fitting than Rollins, and rekindling that rivalry between Rollins and Owens, I think would be cool with the roles reversed this time. Otherwise, I really have no interest because we've seen Owens and Rollins many times before, years ago when the brand split was first brought back. But yeah, Owens as the top babyface is what I would rather see. Rollins should absolutely be a heel. He comes across like a dick more often than not on TV and in promos and in interviews and stuff like that. So, and I like Rollins a lot, but I feel like he's worn out his welcome as a babyface, and his role really right now is as a top heel. And Raw needs top heels anyway. I know they have Brock, but he's never really around. Drew McIntyre is great, but he should also be a babyface. They have AJ, but he's doing his thing in the United States Championship scene right now. Samoa Joe's injured, so yeah, I would turn Rollins. I would turn Rollins and then turn someone like a McIntyre babyface and position Kevin Owens as the top face of Raw. Will they do that? Probably not, but, if they were going to do it, hopefully they would have done it by now. I don't think they see Owens in that role. He really has not amounted to main event material since he lost the Universal Championship almost 3 years ago. And even then, honestly, they never really booked Owens to be a true main eventer. He was always being overshadowed by the authority figures, Triple H and Stephanie, and even Mick Foley during his time as world champion. So I don't know if they've ever really seen Owens in that light as a world champion. They should, because the guy's great, and he is really popular right now. Not that he should be the next Stone Cold, the next rebellious, badass babyface. That's not really all that necessary. But that being said, though, the guy is good enough to fill that role and do it seamlessly. Well, Rollins can be the top heel on that show. And that's a feud, revisited from years ago, I would love to see. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 312 of #AskGSM here today for November 20th, 2019. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. And, of course, we went over the hour fucking mark. Of course, we're over the hour mark. It's because I just have such a fun time answering your guys' questions, so thanks for that, first and foremost, that I can't stop myself. And I go off on certain subjects where I just can't put a break on it. Although I probably should, I just don't. I don't hold the brakes quick enough, but, yeah, so thank you guys, as always, for tuning into the show. If you check out parts of the show, only your question, the entire show, doesn't really matter. A click is a click, and a listen is a listen. So thank you guys, as always, for checking out #AskGSM. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So, with that being said, real quickly, next Thursday is Thanksgiving. I will likely be busy on Wednesday and may not have much, if any, time to record. So, what I'm hoping to do is recording the show on Tuesday. So, if possible, and I'll put up the questions, asking for the questions, I'll put up the tweet and the Facebook post on Monday night, before and after Raw, asking for your questions. I will probably be recording the show on Tuesday and then putting it up on Wednesday. Because if I do it Wednesday, I honestly don't think I'll have time to either record it or put it up that day until much later on. So just keep that in mind. If you want to send in a question to next week's show, please do it a day earlier. Even do it now if you want, if it's an evergreen question. If it doesn't have to do with Survivor Series or anything timely, send it in now and I'll include it in next week's edition. Usually the rule is if I like your comment, like your comment on Facebook or on Twitter. Sometimes I'll pick and choose from your questions what I want to use, because a lot of the questions I've answered before. But 95% of the time I will answer anything wrestling related, movie related, world related, anything other than politics and religion mostly. It's all free reign. It's all free game. So be sure to send in your questions now. And there are times where I'll like tweets, like with the Sonic the Hedgehog question. That was actually sent in by Scarlet One last week. And I liked the tweet, but for whatever reason, I forgot to put it in the doc of questions. So I apologize for that. But if I do that again and you want your question answered and it's really something imperative or whatever and I don't answer it on Twitter, then send it again as Scarlet One. Then I'm glad they did because I was able to talk about it here today, and that's something I have knowledge on, so I can discuss it here on the show, and we'll have fun doing so. So with all that being said, guys, again, new episode coming next Wednesday, but hoping to record it next Tuesday. So get in your questions early. I'd appreciate it. That being said, guys, have an awesome one. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.